Welcome back to The Hidden Queen, the true story of Susan Pevensie, Chapter 4, Part 2, The Wrongness Returns. It started with small things. Summer 1954, Catherine was 2 years old. Susan would be rocking her daughter to sleep and feel the strangest sensation that she'd done this before. Not with Catherine, with someone else. Children she couldn't picture, in a place she couldn't name. She'd catch herself humming lullabies she didn't even remember learning. She'd reach for words of comfort, specific words, particular words, words that felt like they'd once come naturally, and find nothing but fog. She mentioned it to Margaret one Thursday. Do you ever feel like you've done something before? Like deja vu, but deeper? Sometimes, usually when I'm tired. Why? I keep feeling like I've been a mother before, protected children before, but Catherine is my first. Maybe it's instinct, Margaret said gently. Maybe. But it didn't feel like instinct. It felt like memory, like the ghost of something real. Lucy came to visit in the summer of 1954. Found Susan in the garden, Catherine playing on the grass, manuscript pages spread across the table. She's beautiful, Susan. You're doing wonderfully. It's been good, Susan said honestly. Really good, these past few years, you know. But Lucy knew her too well. Susan set down her pen. Sometimes I have these feelings, like I've done all this before, somewhere else, like I should know something I don't. Lucy's face did something complicated, hope and sorrow braided together. Do you ever think about when we were children, the games we played? What games? The four of us, we had such vivid imaginations, created whole worlds. I don't really remember that. You don't remember any of it? Susan watched her sister's face carefully. Lou, what aren't you telling me? Lucy looked down at her hands. Nothing. I'm just being nostalgic. But her eyes were bright with tears when she left. And Susan was left in the garden with the growing certainty that her sister knew something she didn't. Something important. Something that explained why the piece of 5 years was starting to crack. By the time Catherine turned 4, the wrongness was undeniable. Susan would be teaching her to count and feel dizzy with deja vu, or something like deja vu, would be tucking her in and desperately want to say specific words, words of blessing, protection, something sacred and particular, but couldn't find them anywhere. Mama, Catherine said one evening, tell me a story. What kind of story, darling? About castles and queens and magic. Susan's hand stilled on the hairbrush. Why that kind, darling? Catherine shrugged. It just feels right, like maybe you know stories like that. Susan made up a story, but as she spoke, something whispered underneath. This is wrong. You should be telling her something else, something true, something you know. But what? She couldn't remember. And the hole The one she thought was gone, it opened again inside her, wider than before. Robert died in the spring of 1957. Heart attack, sudden. He was only 34 years old. Susan stood at the funeral holding young Catherine's hand and felt two things simultaneously. Genuine grief, real, specific, devastating grief for Robert, kind, steady Robert who loved her well and believed in her stories and brought her tea every morning. And something else. Something terrible. Familiarity. I've done this before. I've stood at a grave and lost people, many people. The thought came unbidden and it wouldn't leave. Margaret was there within the hour. Took charge, made tea, fielded phone calls, held Catherine when Susan couldn't. That night, after everyone had gone and Catherine was finally asleep, Margaret sat beside Susan in the dark. Didn't speak, just sat. Finally, Susan said, "This grief feels familiar, like I've felt it before, but Robert is the first person close to me who's died. Why does it feel like I've done this before?" Margaret was quiet. Then, sometimes griefs open doors to older griefs, losses we didn't know we were carrying. But I don't know what else I'm grieving. Maybe you don't need to know. Maybe you just need to feel it. So Susan did. Wept for Robert, for Catherine growing up fatherless, for herself alone again, and for something else she couldn't name. Something that had apparently been waiting, patient and enormous, for exactly this moment of grief to surface. Margaret kept her afloat in the weeks that followed. Meals brought, afternoons taken, silence sat with. "I don't know what I'd do without you," Susan said one afternoon. "You'd survive. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong." Strong people rarely do. Margaret poured more tea. "Can I ask you something? Your books, they're always about searching. Children who've lost their way home. Someone waiting to be remembered. Who are you writing about?" Susan's hand trembled on her cup. I don't know," she whispered. "I just know they're searching for something precious, something lost, something they need to find their way back to." "Are you writing about yourself?" There was a long silence. "Maybe." Margaret squeezed her hand. "Whatever you're searching for, I hope you find it." Susan threw herself into writing. She was the sole breadwinner in the family now. Catherine needed her. The writing had to work. But it became more than just work. It became the only place the whole felt less empty. A story poured out of her, a prince who betrayed his kingdom, someone who'd paid the price for his sin, love and sacrifice and redemption and grace. She wrote it in 6 months, barely sleeping, barely eating. Her editor called it a theological masterpiece. Susan had no idea what he meant. She'd just written what felt true to her at the time. The book came out and it was dedicated to Edmund. Readers wrote letters saying it had saved them, changed them, helped them understand grace. And Susan felt both deeply validated and quite deeply confused, because she'd written something profoundly true about something she couldn't remember. Catherine started school in September 1957. Susan walked her to the gate that first morning, holding her small hand. "You'll be wonderful," Susan said. "Mummy, will you be here when I come out?" "Always, darling." And, of course, she was. Every morning for the next 12 years, Susan was at that gate, or another gate just like it. Writing in the mornings, Margaret on Thursdays, Catherine every afternoon. Normal life, purposeful life, with the wrongness always there in the background, but bearable now, because she had her daughter, her writing, her friend. One afternoon in 1965, at a bookshop signing, a woman approached with a worn copy of The Lost Prince. "You helped me forgive myself," she said, voice shaking. "My brother died. We'd fought the day before. I couldn't move past the guilt. Your book, the part about accepting grace instead of trying to earn it, that was what I needed." Susan signed the book with trembling hands. After the woman left, she sat very still. She'd helped someone, written something true from a loss she couldn't remember. How is that possible? It was for a person she'd never met. That evening, she told Margaret about it. She said I'd written exactly what she needed, but I didn't know what I was writing. Maybe that's the point, Margaret said. Maybe truth doesn't need to be understood to be told. It just needs to be released. So I'm telling truths I don't understand. I think you're the channel, not the source. Catherine was 16 in 1968. Bright, beautiful, applying to universities. Susan helped her with application essays at the kitchen table and felt a fierce, uncomplicated surge of love, and yes, pride as well. This was hers. Whatever was lost or forgotten or missing, she had this. She really had this. "Mum," Catherine looked up from her essay. "Thank you." "For what, darling?" "For always being here, for always showing up. I know it hasn't been easy raising me alone." "Oh, sweetheart," Susan's eyes filled. "You're the best thing I've ever done. You know that, don't you?" Catherine smiled. "I know." And for that moment, that perfect, ordinary, irreplaceable moment, Susan felt whole. Not because the hole was gone, but because love had grown around it. Large enough to hold it. Strong enough for that time to bear it. And for now, well, that was everything. Next, chapter 5.